chapter, he refers himself, saying that he did not mean history, but he meant that history that was aimed at emphasizing and promoting capitalist military kings and barons. That was what he meant. And to that extent, what he did was to establish in his village. All these things I'm saying are contained in the brochure you have in your hand. He established a museum where history could be taught. And that was why, in some years to come, American government had to make history a compulsory subject for any American graduating from any college in America till today. Now, even in our own country, you find out that by the 1980s, even official policy made history to be at the bottom of the rung. History was no longer being taught. History was being relegated by official policy. Rather, what was being done was emphasis on science and technology. And this resulted in history not being taught. You find out that for many years, many decades in the Nigerian society, history was not taught in the primary and secondary school. It was not until about 2-3 years ago that through the instrumentality of the Historical Society of Nigeria, history was made to return to the primary and secondary schools. And even after the policy has been made, you find out that history up to now is not being practically taught in the school system. Yet history was used by nationalist leaders, by the Azikiwes, when they were fighting colonialists, they resorted to asking Nnamdi and some other African historians to give them some lessons, because what the Europeans were saying was that Africa was a place where there was no history. And the people didn't know how to do anything that how to do. They didn't know how to build kingdom. But through the studies that Nnamdi and others carried out, it was discovered that before European colonization of Africa, history was being taught. Our people had been able to build and establish kingdoms, governments that had also been able to do other things that had to do with the promotion of trade and industry. Now, apart from that, you find out, as it were in this lecture, that you find that what happened was that over time, you find out that banking is a subject which over time I have resorted to. I've taught this, I've researched on this from my undergraduate days. My first degree was on the African Continental Bank. My PhD was a history of banking, and that's why over the years, you find out that I've discovered a lot of things that happen. That is why this lecture is entitled Banking Monopoly. Why do we call it banking monopoly? We call it banking monopoly because during the colonial period, in the Nigerian context, European banks, British banks, such as the Bank of Britain West Africa, Colonial Bank, Barclays Bank, and the London UBA were all foreign banks and were established to give default loans for the promotion of trade in Africa. But you could ask yourself, what kind of trade did the facility they gave? To whom did they give the facilities? They gave the facilities to their own European trading companies that were established, owned by Europeans, but whose operations were carried out in Nigeria. Now, the other question we may ask is, why the use of monopoly. What is monopoly? In this context, monopoly means a practice whereby a source of supply, whether goods or services, is managed by one person. You find out that during colonial period, banking services in Nigeria were only disbursed by foreign trading companies, foreign financial institutions, and they disbursed their loans to foreign trading companies, such as the GBO, USC, and name them. As I have provided in the lecture, let us go to page slide 8. You could turn to that. We are using it. Yes. It's talking about English commercial banks in Nigeria and the local economy. Here you find out that a revenue of European trading companies it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. Please, yes. Here, we are talking about English commercial banks. The English commercial banks mentioned here or studied here have to do with the Bank of Britain West Africa, which we now call First Bank of Nigeria. This bank began operation in Lagos in 1894, and that's where this study takes off from 1894. That was when the bank began its operation in Lagos, having been registered in London. It was established to be able to disburse credit facilities to the English trading companies in Nigeria. And much later, there was another bank that was also established called the Anglo-African Bank. The Anglo-African Bank. That was established in 1899. 1899. Now, when you hear Anglo-African Bank, you could mistaken it to be a bank that had African interests at heart. But no, the bank was also established by a group of trading companies that were trading along the oil rivers territory in Nigeria. And it was aimed at undertaking a competition with the Bank of Britain West Africa, while the Bank of Britain West Africa, we had previously started operation in 1894, was aimed at disbursing loans to its own partners, trading companies, shipping companies, and so on. And at that time, too, you find out that the British money, species of money, were always printed in London, but shipped back to Nigeria through the Delta shipping line. And then when the money arrived, it was the business or the shipping of the Bank of Britain West Africa to take off the money from Lagos and then circulate to other parts of West Africa. Now, over time, it became obvious that there should be establishment of banks so that instead of the banking or the shipping company undertaking the business of the bank should now take up its traditional touches of banking. And so the Bank of British West Africa was established. And then that was in 1891. Then 1899, Anglo-African Bank was established. However, over time, 3 years after, you find out that the Bank of British West Africa swallowed up, absorbed the Anglo-African Bank, thereby leaving the space alone for the Bank of British West Africa to continue as the only monopoly bank in the space. And this business continued until 1916. By 1916, another bank, Colonial Bank, by name, Colonial Bank, was established. Then the scope of competition made between foreign banks was open. This competition between the Colonial Bank and the Bank of British West Africa continued until 1925. Another bank came on board, and that was Barclays Bank. Barclays Bank was also a foreign bank. And when it came, it merged with the Colonial Bank. Together, the two foreign banks, the Bank of British West Africa and the Colonial Bank, continued. In all these enterprises, no Nigeria, more often than not, Nigerians were not in any way given any banking facility. The space continued until 1925. By 1925, United Bank for Africa, UBA, came up, and that was another foreign bank. The first for competition among foreign banks, with the result that Africans were always disenfranchised. As you will see in the table, on the table that you have, table 1, please turn to that. Could you turn to that next? Can you see that table, table 1? Please turn to it. You can see the table there. You find out that between 1886 and 1890, there was a tremendous steady increase in the import-export trade on yearly basis between West Africa and Africa and the Europe. Between 1891 and 1895, the increase continued. Between 1896 and 1900, the increase continued. Between 1901 and 1905, it continued. Between 1906 and 16 and 19, Winifred gave the answer, opened a bank in Lagos. However, that's why that is titled Reaction to Foreign Banking Domination. That's reaction to foreign banking domination. And what does this mean? Over time, Nigerians who have been frustrated, who were not in any way given any facilities. I recall that in 1912, for instance, African traders resident in Lagos, they wrote a petition to the British government complaining of the level of disenfranchisement by European banks in Lagos. They carried placards and continued this. They allowed the international community to get to know what was befalling them. And then the process continued. 1929, Tete Ansa founded this bank. But the bank, due to hostile colonial environment, was frustrated by European banks. In 1931 again, he founded another bank, and this bank could not survive. Then came 1930s. As we shall see, Nnamdi Azikiwe was a man who broke trade in many ways. Nnamdi Azikiwe more often we think of him as a nationalist. We think of him as a journalist. But beyond that, Azikiwe was a businessman. At a point in his life, he was a customer to the Bank of British West Africa and National Bank. National Bank was founded by a group of Nigerians in 1933. Azikiwe was an account holder in the two banks. He applied for a loan to the Bank of British West Africa, and according to his memoir, when he got to the bank at the Lagos office, the bank manager kept Azikiwe standing for hours, and at the end of the day, Azikiwe wrote, let me quote from what he said. He said, since 1937, I and my business establishment have your bank, and our turnover is respectable enough. The interest which you draw from us is out of proportion to the benefits we derive from your banking facilities. As long as business executives of your type are prejudiced and unreasonable, so long will you find it impossible to have Africans of my type willing to cooperate with you beyond the ordinary veneer of business relationship. The time will come when I, Nnamdi Azikiwe, will head a bank and face you on even terms, so that you will realize that in banking, as well as in any other business activity, discretion and the common sense are valuable assets in human relations. That was Azikiwe writing. Many of us faced with such a situation would have withdrawn. We would have run away. But Azikiwe got home, wrote to the bank manager, and told him, look, a day will come when I, Azikiwe, own a bank. And what did Azikiwe do? Not how long Azikiwe established, he turned his business company called Tinubu Property Limited. He turned it into a bank called African Continental Bank. He did that to liberalize credit facilities to fellow Africans, so that what European banks had denied them could be given to them by African banks. And not only that, he perfected that. In fact, that was why in my first degree project, which was on the African Continental Bank, I took time to analyze the impact, the contributions of the ACB to the economic growth and development of the Nigerian society. I remember one young man, when I was doing my PhD at the University of Calabar, who told me from Africa that the father was a customer to the Bank of British West Africa. But as soon as Azikiwe opened his ACB, his father left with all his accounts from BBWA, Bank of British West Africa, to establish a relationship with the ACB. I asked him why. He said, let me tell you, one of the reasons why my father left ACB, BBWA, was that he wanted a place where the workers, where the staff could talk to him, because according to him, his father was a stock feed dealer from Abreba. He needed a bank managed by Africans where they could help in transacting business, writing his forms for him, and facilitating business for him, his import of stockfish. That was why the man left. And then many other African banks also were established. However, as we get to know, many of them that were established in those days were established not with some genuineness. Some of them were established with sentiment. And that was why by the late 1940s, 1950s, there was a crash. There was a large bank failure, which resulted in many customers losing their deposits. in Africa, in African banks. Again, many African banks of the 1940s, 1950s failed the way they did due to the fact that they did not have any managerial capability. Some of the people who managed the bank, they swindled owners by giving irrecoverable loans without a corresponding collateral. And sometimes people that were beneficiaries will take the money, run into the bush. They will not be found again. To a large extent, those were some of the factors that led to the failure of many African banks in those days. But then, there were still some other ones that survived. For instance, the National Bank survived until recently, SCB survived until recently, and then the Agbome called Wema Bank also survived until recently. So, like some people will say, out of the bad, out of evil, sometimes you can find good things. Azikiwe was one of those who were able to establish good banks that liberalized credit facilities. Then, another reaction which Nigerians gave was through establishment of central bank. By the 1950s, the debate was in the nation was on at the House of Assembly, House of Representatives in Lagos as to whether there should be a central bank for a Nigeria as it were. And then the debate was on. But along the line, the nationalists, in fact, Azikiwe played a great role. Ken Badiwe, another Igbo man, who was a member of the House of Representatives, debated until also a Nigerian government was able to establish a central bank, whose operation began in 1959. And then, what we may ask ourselves, among other things, could be, after the establishment of foreign central bank, what has been the fate of our economy? This is where we may raise a question. Because we found out that, in spite of the fact that we have been able to free ourselves from political hegemony of the European countries like Great Britain, we found out that our economy has not been able to be freed, all because of the level of partisanship in our economy. You find out that almost everything in our economy is equated within the prism of partisan politics. For instance, in 1997, the Central Bank of Nigeria, which by the law establishment was meant to be autonomous, was meant to be independent, was brought under the pretenders of the Ministry of Finance, and that was under Abacha. The Central Bank of Nigeria began to take instructions from government of Sani Abacha, and this was wrong. But the law establishing it in 1958 said that the bank should be autonomous. And then, even in 2014, when Soludo government introduced some measure whereby banks should be capitalized at the rate of 25 billion naira. What did the Senate of the House of the Federal Republic of Nigeria do? The Senate began to categorize. Don't worry, I'm okay. When Charles Soludo, as CBN governor, in 2004, under the presidency of Olusegun Obasanjo, introduced a package of reform program for the banking sector, whereby each bank was to capitalize at a tune of 25 billion naira. What did the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria do? The Senate undertook the categorization of the 25 billion naira. And the idea was political. So that some people, some banks from northern part of the country, which were unable to produce 25 billion naira, will be made to pay the sum of 5 billion naira and continue with their operation. But what did the banks which were unable to do that do? What they did was to go into discussion to enter a memorandum of association, where they were now able to merge. Those of them that were not able to pull through, they were able to merge. And that was why, at the end of the day, the number of, as at the time, 89 commercial banks were presented to be heavy in Nigeria. At the end, the number was pulled down to a manageable size, so that you, the customer, you could sleep with your two eyes closed. In conclusion of this lecture, I have said, you get other details in your, I've said, among other things, summary and conclusion. I said, from the issues raised and discussed in this lecture, a number of salient factors are discernible. These are: 1, the period of foreign banking monopoly with all its punishing consequences on the Nigerian public. 2, the period of foreign banking, the Nigerians' reaction to the situation through the establishment of nationalist banks. 3, mass failures or the nationalist and the indigenous banks, and the question mark on the indigenous businessmen's proficiency. 4, the role of banking reforms in relative stabilization of the banking system. And then the coming of the CBN on the eve of Nigeria's political independence. 2 principal questions may arise from the above issues, namely: 1, with the establishment of the CBN in 1959, how has the Nigerian economy failed since then? 2, has the Nigerian banking system become truly independent and adequately capitalized ever since then? In providing answers to the foregoing questions, I place existential realities above theories. Central banks are established to ensure the attainment of the monetary policy objective of a country, affect its exchange rates, and promote financial stability. They also help to determine a country's international financial and monetary cooperation with other countries. The independent authority and the central bank can as well enhance or circumscribe democratic governance. However, in many instances, these expectations have fizzled into fantasies and noble dreams in most African countries. In Nigeria, for instance, cases and the allegations of political interference in the operation of the CBN since its birth are common. Political interference is invariably transferred to the commercial banks, which in turn manipulate their interest rate for political reasons. In the end, the economy, along with the citizenry, bear the brunt. In concluding this lecture, therefore, it is my candid opinion, and I make bold to state this, that for a healthy Nigerian economy, the banking industry must be insulated from partisan politics. Part of why we have continued to experience crisis in the Nigerian banking industry, nay, the Nigerian economy, is largely because we tend to see everything from the prism of partisan politics. In the recent times, underprivileged Nigerians have gone through all manner of economic hardship due to the ill-advised policy on the part of the CBN over the design of the national currency. We make this assertion because it does appear that the managers of our Nigerian financial system tend to pander their loyalty toward the neo-colonialist forces of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund at the expense of the Nigerian people. We must therefore, at all times, be guided by the timeless counsel of Dr. Pius Okigbo to be fair that good politics, to be fair that banking is a specialized career with admixture with politics might be good politics than bad banking. Seeing the country already has in existence a number of extant legislations aimed to insulate the CBN from external political interferences. The operators of the bank, that's the CBN, and indeed all other categories of banks in the country should, for professional ethics and good conscience, abide by the rules of engagement. The CBN Act in question provides that the CBN shall be fully autonomous in the discharge of its functions. You can see this, the Vice-Chancellor, sir, university management, the VIPs, fellow staff, students, and many other guest groups who are too numerous to mention. I want to say, quote, I am grateful for your time. May God bless you. I think I should be allowed to read my acknowledgement. Yes. It's not contained here. Thank you, sir. Yes. All right. Acknowledgement. To have gone this far in my academic forces would only have taken a combination of collaborative efforts from certain factors which include divine and man-made. First in the being is the Almighty God, from whom flow life and all the things that pertain to it. For his goodness and mercies to me and my household, I am eternally grateful. Flowing from the above, it will be fair to place on record the sacrifices made by my late father, Timothy Chukwumba, who laid a strong foundation for our progress in life. A staff of the Native Authority NA at Abwani, our father, assisted by our mother, Mrs. Amaka Chukwumba, augmented his meager salary with the proceeds generated from his farm work to send us to school. At the demands of our father, my brother, the Christian Chukwumba, saw to the glowing of the light of formal education ignited in the family by our father. The experience of the first day he took me to the National Secondary School in Nnewi for my secondary education and remained evergreen in my life, in my mind. May God keep his soul and that of his wife, Mrs. Patricia Mogemba, late in his paradise. To my younger brother, John, now late, and his wife, Mrs. Kate Okechukwu Chukwu, I would say thank you for your love. I also appreciate in a sincere way our only surviving sister, Mrs. Uche Amanze, and her family. I pray that God will continue to bless and sustain them. My dear wife, Mrs. Chinyere Stella Dan Chukwu, has been a great source of inspiration since we got married 19 years ago. She and our children, Chimere Muma and Chimere Meze, have always prayed and stood by me in thick and thin. I recall an occasion where Professor Mrs. Gladys Ahaneku, the wife of our former Vice-Chancellor, told me that I should be grateful to God that I did not marry a cantankerous wife who would have made the home too uncomfortable for me, thereby impeding my attainment of a professorial rank. Other members of my family, both nuclear and extended, who deserve a place in this appreciation are Engineer Pastor Okechukwu Chukwu, Barrister Christiana Obisini Mba, Mr. Leonard Anyanwu, Mr. Chinonso Okafor, Mr. Ekene Ago, and Nkiru Ebiem. As a young college boy at the National Secondary School in Nnewi, I met some tutors who helped to lay a strong foundation for my attaining a height in life. They included Mr. Benjamin Ekwalo, the principal, and Chief Emmanuel Okonkwo, the vice principal. Please, I just got news some weeks ago. May God receive his soul. Amen. In fact, it was to the credit of Chief Okonkwo that I was admitted into the school. Also, the foundation of my taking to study history and becoming a professor of that discipline, which midwives other academic disciplines, was led by Mr. C.C.A. Zofia, the great history teacher. One Mr. Ekwalo, who later became, between October and December 1983, who was between October and elected Speaker of the former Anambra State House of Assembly, Enugu, was for many years an English tutor at Christ the King College, Onitsha, before assuming the principalship at Nnewi. Chief Okonkwo was an Nsukka-trained economist who between 1973 and 1983 was the vice principal of the school. Apart from the college teachers whose name I have mentioned above, it will be proper to underline the fact that my occasional meetings with the founder of the school, Dr. Akweke Abisinia Nwafor, added to the spark which poured me to scholarly greatness. The privilege of meeting Dr. Akweke Nwafor, conscious of my position as the senior prefect of our days, provided an opportunity to be presented with a book, Original Zikism, an expose of Dr. Agri and Dr. Azikiwe, as well as their philosophical thoughts on European imperialism and African irredentism. And what is more, the book was to further fortify my grounding in the humanities studies in later years. I think I've been asked to summarize, and I have to obey my Deputy Vice-Chancellor, who is representing the VC here. I will request that when you go home, take time to study not only the acknowledgements, but also other details as contained in the lecture. I want to thank you sincerely for finding time to be at this occasion whereby I've been honored, and you may have, I say you may or you may not have gained from the little fountain of knowledge that I've been able to put across to you. May God bless you, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Please, another round of applause for our guest lecturer. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and we say congratulations. I will not wasting much of our time. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I invite Professor Mike Ezenwa to please come up for the decoration, to do the needful in preparation for the decoration. Professor Ezenwa.
Thank you very much, the University Auditor and for information, Dean of my faculty, also to sign. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, we are very sure we need to invite, to invite the wife to stay by his side for the Vice-Chancellor to please decorate our inaugural lecturer who has delivered the 79th inaugural lecture of Nnamdi Azikiwe University. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, sir, presented by DVC admin, Professor Joseph Okechukwu.
Today, the 30th of March, 2023, and having presented this 79th inaugural lecture of Nnamdi Azikiwe University, I hereby, by the powers of Senate, Council of the University, and representing the Vice-Chancellor, decorate you with this medal as the 79th inaugural lecturer of Nnamdi Azikiwe University, to the glory of God. Amen. Okay. Dean of the faculty, please come.
We take some pictures immediately, but today is a special one, a great day in the life of the inaugural lecturer.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
It is not easy.
Thank you, sir.
It's being congratulated by the Vice-Chancellor.
Bishop Paul is here.
Represented on the very resourceful Deputy Vice-Chancellor of the.
I think I walk with that place.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Please,
Bishop.
I mean,
I am handling it. Go and greet him. Dr. Paul.
no, you could not even have your question. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
Jimmy.
Hi.
Bishop of Prof of God Mission.
Give me your number.
Announce it.
Let's go through head of department. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor.
Now,
Because, hold on, wait. Here. Bishop Paul. Because you go now. Who say picture with Bishop? Bishop, come now. I'm on.
Bishop Dr. Nation.
Sir, hold on. There's a protocol. What you are doing? No. Dean.
Bishop Dr. Paul Uwakwe Jr. Bishop Grace of God Mission. We welcome you. Please may we inform all of us that other protocols will be done downstairs. It will be done downstairs. Please may we be seated, please. So that we are being state in mind.
We honored you this way.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You do that.
At this juncture,
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
may I humbly invite for the vote of thanks the chairman of the University Inaugural Lecture Committee, ably represented today by one of the members of the committee, in the person of Professor Mike Esimone, to please come forward for the vote of thanks.
I am the observant where my dad.
Thank you.
I was losing my
The Vice-Chancellor, sir, is agreeing with me that today is a special day. And Lord has made
we have come a long way. We have come a long way.
of the trajectory that took place and the expectation of Western society, of our society, and is still continuing. So, on behalf of the Vice-Chancellor and the university community, I thank the inaugural lecturer for bringing our attendance to this matter. I thank his wife, and, well, we say confirmation, how it is at home. She's really a caregiver.
Thank you very much. The procession will now commence in reverse order. Will be led by the Vice-Chancellor, then the inaugural lecturer, the professors, and others. Please, let us not break the procession. It is part of the inaugural lecture, please. Let's finish first. We can come back for the entertainment, please. Thank you. We must have to conclude strong. Thank you. Thank you. This is good. Dr. Chinedu, we salute you. That was a wonderful performance. Thank you. Hello. Hello. So we can proceed out and then come back for the entertainment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.